That's better. Okay. All right, so I'm going to start off with the cardiovascular system. So this one, this blood vessel right here, which, if you notice, is right next to the trachea. This is the trachea. Okay, right next to the trachea is the left common carotid artery. Okay, this here, I know it's a little flat, but this one right here is the left internal jugular, and in between you have the vagus nerve. Okay, so those three are really important. They're found on both sides, so you can see that here as well. This would be the right common carotid, the right vagus nerve, and then the internal jugular, the right internal jugular. Here is the external jugular. Okay, you can see the external jugular if you kind of dig a little bit in there. Do you see that right there? That's the external jugular. Okay, so that one right there is the external jugular. Right? The external jugular and internal jugulars, they come together. Okay, so this is part of that. They come together this way, down into the heart right here. That's the superior vena cava. That's the superior vena cava. This here is the inferior vena cava. That's the inferior vena cava. Okay, so superior, inferior. Okay, the superior vena cava and inferior vena cava all go into the right atrium. Okay, the right atrium is right here. This is the right ventricle. You can see the heart has a little groove in it, the interventricular groove or sulcus. Okay, the apex is always for the left ventricle. Okay, this is the left ventricle. This is the left atrium. Remember, in the heart, the most anterior vessel is always the pulmonary trunk. Okay, that's the pulmonary trunk. Okay, and then behind the pulmonary trunk is where you'll find the aorta. And that's the aorta right here. Okay, this is the aorta. The aorta has two vessels in the pig that come off of it. That's the brachiocephalic trunk, which is this one right here.
The first one, right?
The first one. And then the second one right here is the left subclavian. Remember, in the pig there's two. In the human there are three. Okay? So then the brachiocephalic trunk goes here. Do you see that behind? And then it splits off into the left common carotid, the right common carotid, and also the right subclavian, which we haven't really dug out and dissected. But this one right here is the left subclavian, so the right subclavian looks the same, right? So the left subclavian goes over, right, that rib, which is the rib number 1, and then you can see it over here, and it becomes the axillary artery and eventually the brachial artery. Okay, so that's the brachial artery right there. Okay, now the aorta that you see there continues down. Right, this is the aorta here. Okay, that's called the thoracic aorta. Remember, if you push the lungs out of the way, you can see the thoracic aorta. Okay, the thoracic aorta eventually is going to become the abdominal aorta. That's this right here, the abdominal aorta.
Where does it become the abdominal aorta?
As it passes the diaphragm.
Okay, so right after the diaphragm?
Right after the diaphragm. So the diaphragm is right here, so after the diaphragm, pull that up. This is the diaphragm right here. So it's just right above the liver. So once it goes past the diaphragm, then it's the abdominal aorta. And the abdominal aorta is best pointed out right here. Okay, we have models that are really good. And then the abdominal aorta branches into the right and left common iliacs. And you can see them right there. Do you see them? Right there? Right and left common iliacs. See that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you see that split right there?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. And so here you can also see the renal artery. You see that renal artery? This one right here, right next to it, is the inferior vena cava. So that's the inferior vena cava. That's the abdominal aorta. So you can see that, both of them. Inferior vena cava and abdominal aorta. And you can see the renal artery right here, and then the renal vein. You see that? Renal artery and renal vein. Okay? And this that we keep pushing around, this is the rectum.
Green, right?
The green one, this is the rectum. Correct. These are the umbilical arteries. Okay, these are the umbilical arteries. And in case you're wondering, the umbilical vein is this one right here that we had to cut. This is the umbilical vein right here. To get inside, really, we had to cut that to get in there. It's attached to the umbilical vein is how we get the oxygenated blood from our mother. So eventually, after you are no longer dependent on the oxygen from your mother, that becomes a ligament. Okay?
One vein, two arteries.
Yes. One vein, two arteries. Alright, so that was a little bit about cardiovascular system. Okay, a little bit about the heart. Now let's go to the respiratory system. Okay, so the respiratory system begins in the nostrils. Okay, there's the nasal cavity up in there, which we didn't really dissect out, but then we have the epiglottis right there. That's the epiglottis. Okay, and then you see that opening right there? That's the opening to the nasopharynx. Nasopharynx. Okay, which is, as the air exits from your nasal cavity. It goes to the nasopharynx. From nasopharynx, the air is going to go inside, because remember the epiglottis would close if we were swallowing something so that we don't inhale it. Okay, so in here is the glottis, okay, which you don't really need to know. But the glottis then leads into the larynx, okay, which is this, then to the trachea, okay. This one doesn't have, since we have a heart, we didn't see the bronchi, but you know how it splits? It's the primary bronchi, then the secondary bronchi, okay. And then eventually we're going to go to the lungs, which we have 3 lobes of the right lung, okay, superior, middle, and inferior. And then we have 2 lobes of the left lung, superior and inferior. Okay? So that's the left lung. Notice that the heart is kind of pointing in that direction, that's why it makes the left lung a little bit smaller.
So if there's like something on the lung, you're not going to say apex or base, you're going to say what lobe it is probably? Like it'll specify?
Yeah, probably. I mean, on the model you can also see it has lines that delineate where it's the... You don't have to call it, we mean apical, meaning the point at the top, like the apex.
Yeah.
That it actually has a few names, because you can also call it the apical lobe, but I say superior, middle, and inferior is better. It's easier to remember. Okay. You might just say right lung, left lung. Okay. So it just depends on the question. And make sure you read the question. Okay. So the question is going to be, if it just says identify, you just be as specific as possible. Okay. All right. Let's do the digestive system. Okay. So the digestive system, here's the tongue. Okay. The teeth, I didn't pull one out. So the tooth, you got to make sure you know it on that plaque back over there. Okay. Behind the trachea is going to be a tube. Okay. And this tube is going to be your esophagus. Okay. So that's the esophagus. Okay. The esophagus is going to go down past the diaphragm, actually the diaphragm, which I didn't mention for the respiratory system. I'm going to make sure you know that. Okay, so that's the diaphragm. Okay. Now, you go into the stomach. Okay. Okay. Yeah. So this is the stomach. Okay. The stomach also has near it the spleen. Okay. So this is the spleen. Okay, so this kind of looks like a little tongue. Okay, inside of the abdominal cavity, obviously not that tongue. Okay, in the stomach, in this case it's flat. Okay, sometimes it's bulgy, it just depends on the pig. Depends on what they have in it.
This is a skinny pig.
This is a skinny pig. The little part right here that's really hard, that's the pylorus. Okay, where the pyloric sphincter is inside. And then it goes right into the first part of the small intestine, which is called the duodenum. Right with the duodenum, so this is the duodenum right here, is going to be the pancreas. So this is the pancreas. Okay, so you see that chunky stuff right there? All of that. Okay, this chunky stuff. Here, 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 and here. You see that? Okay, that's pancreas. Okay. This is this right here is your digestive. Okay, this is the duodenum. And then if you continue, you can see here, use the mesentery. Okay, really pretty. That's filled with the stripes. Okay, notice that it's like transparent. See, it's transparent. And it's going to continue throughout all of your small intestines. Basically, it keeps everything organized. Okay. So if we go and continue, blah, 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 that's the jejunum, right? Blah, blah, blah. We don't know really where it ends, right? Until we get to here, which I always have trouble finding. We get to here. Okay. So this is the ileum. We're not 100% sure where that transition is, but we know for sure that this is ileum because this is the end right here, where it goes into, you see that right there? It goes into the large intestine. So this little pouchy area right at the beginning of the large intestine is called the cecum. There's a little thing that hangs off of it. You can see that here. That's the appendix. Okay? So it's the appendix. This here is the colon. In pigs, the colon is called a spiral colon. So it spirals around. In humans, the colon goes up, right? Ascending, transverse, descending colon, and then sigmoid colon, because it might be on a human model instead of here, okay?
How come the colon is the entire large intestine, but the large intestine is not the colon?
Okay, large intestine includes the cecum. The cecum is the only part that we don't call colon. So when you say colon, you're really not including the cecum and the appendix.
Okay, so large intestine is all of that.
Yeah, it's all of that.
Got
Correct.
it.
Okay. And then this is the rectum. Okay, and then it ends, of course, in the anus. Okay. Let's see what else. The kidneys. All right. So this is one kidney right here. Okay. Okay. It has a little capsule around it that kind of keeps it in place. It has a ureter. Okay. You can see the ureter. Remember, ureter you have to spell correctly. U-R-E-T. T-E-R-U-R-E-T-E-R. Okay, that's one ureter. This would be the left ureter. And this is your other kidney. And then this is your other ureter. Okay, this one. Right here. Okay, so it's a kind of sort of like curly loop almost. Okay. And then that leads to the urinary bladder, which is right here. So the urinary bladder is right here in between the umbilical arteries. The urinary bladder. Okay? And then the this is really cool just to throw it out there. These are the gonadal arteries. You can see that coming off of the aorta. This is kind of cool. Okay? All right, I'm going to stop there because I need the other pig for the male and female parts. Yep. This is